This is the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Kendall of the notaballerina.com travel blog. Every episode I'll share travel tales from several fellow travel lovers, and together we hope to entertain and inspire you, remind you of some of your own great travel experiences, and encourage you to hit the road again soon. Hello and welcome to episode 272 of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Today's topic is the way that travel gives you confidence. Now, I am, these days, I think, a fairly confident person, and I put a lot of this down to my experiences travelling and living abroad in my 20s. Now, the funny thing is, I feel like I talk kind of frequently about how travelling gives you confidence, but I went back to find, a list of all the previous episodes about travel and confidence, and I discovered I actually haven't dedicated a whole episode to this topic since episode 15, way back in 2016. So it is absolutely overdue, and I look forward to, as a consequence, also hearing some of your own stories about how travel has given you confidence. I think my travel experiences have helped me to be more confident in talking to people, to all kinds of people, made me confident that I can get through, hard stuff or tricky situations, and generally kind of given me confidence in kind of all kind of realms, sort of transferred through both my personal and professional lives. And I feel like I would be a very different and definitely a less confident person without a lot of the travel experiences I've had. As it turns out, others agree, and so I have three guests today who have their own experiences to share about how travel has given them confidence. Now, my first guest today is Sophia Bentaher, and she has a really good story to tell us. It comes from a couple of years back when she was travelling around Europe with her friend Annabelle.
Nor myself nor Annabelle had ever hitchhiked or done a trip of this type of travel. And I think it's in this trip, I know that it's in this trip that I really developed the idea of intuition and confidence, because when you're hitchhiking, so there's two types of hitchhiking, right? There's passive or active. Passive is, I know you're like, wait, what?
Tell me more.
Tell me more. So passive is when you put your thumb out. Passive is you standing somewhere. You're not engaging. The only action is you're informing, thumbs up, hey, I need a ride. And then you're letting people come to you. So you're receiving somebody's, it's when cars will pull up or not. An active is, for example, if you're at a gas station or on a street and you go up to people and say, hi, I'm Sophia and I'm trying to go to Slovenia. Can you help me? Right. And we started very much in a passive form, because the active, we started learning about active hitchhiking. We didn't read it in a book or something. We just got to that point through practice confidence of talking to strangers and seeing that there are people who want to help. There's people would pick us up, and when we ask, like, why did you say yes? They were like, we don't want anything bad to happen to you. And I would always say, that's so sweet. And you are right now embodying the kindness that you don't think exists.
Yes, that's so true. Yeah, it's ironic.
Like you think it's a world of only bad people who are going to hurt us, but you're being the good that you think isn't there. So it was
and
really
so many people are the good. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But anyway, so back to this thing of intuition and confidence. When you're doing passive hitchhiking, sometimes cars will come up. It happened to us a few times. We had this rule, right? It was if there's any reason that something feels off, we don't fight it. It's just you have to follow the gut. You have to follow the gut. It is so crucial.
Smart.
And we started developing that in the sense where, you might get in a car and you might start feeling a weird vibe. And it's easy to gaslight yourself. It's easy for, like, I have this where I'll feel something and I'll be like, no, but it's me because I da-da-da-da-da. And then something happens and you're like, oh, I was right.
Should have listened to myself. Yeah.
And so from that base of like practice intuition, we started being able to just really have a confidence of like, I know how I feel in this moment. I know what I'm looking for. I know how to ask for it. I know how to set a boundary. I know how to speak firmly, kindly, but firmly. right? So there was one moment when we were in a car and we were just feeling the man was making some weird comments about like, oh, if I put the heat up, well, maybe you'll get hot and take some clothes off. And we were just like, no, that's not funny. It's just not.
No, it's really
No.
not.
So we just had, we had to just very firmly say, okay, here we want to get off. And not from a place of like, how dare you say that? But just like, no, now we're going to get off. This is the point where you pull over. And just like, those moments, obviously here I'm using an example of a more challenging moment, but there's also, I think confidence also gets built when you realize that there's a positive outcome from your actions. So you start trusting yourself more, and you think, oh, wow, I know that by the end of the trip, I wouldn't wake up with that. The first few days I would wake up with this pit feeling of like, I don't know where I'm sleeping tonight. And I said that I'm going to go to Poland, but I'm in Czech Republic. How's that going to happen? So, and it was like this feeling of, and that became more and more, the more it would happen and the more solutions would happen over time. I'd wake up in Bulgaria and I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to Greece today. I don't know where, but I'll go there.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure it out. So I think that's a form of self-trust and confidence that still today I carry. And I definitely carried that from the trip moving forward. I used to be very, very I would try to control any outcome through planning. And through like, okay, so if this happens, this will be my solution. If that happens, this will be my solution. And I think the trip made me realize that there's certain values and skills that you can know about yourself. And any situation that comes your way, if you're fairly grounded in knowing that you're able to communicate well, you're able to listen, you're able to search to be resourceful, you're able to see a situation in a different way than it might appear, you're able to know your privilege, check your privilege.
Important.
Yeah. You're able to be whatever, right? It's a series of tools, like almost this toolbox. And once you start realizing that you have those tools and sharpening them as well, nowadays in my life, it's really interesting. A few of my friends reflect that. They're like, there's nothing really that can phase you. Like, I'm not somebody who stresses easily. And I really think that that's because of I saw myself go through situations that seemed either difficult to manage or really exciting, whatever, right? Whatever part of the spectrum we're on. And so it just developed a self-confidence of like, okay, if I can get through that, I can get through many other things.
I think that's so true. I think that's exactly what travel does. And like life does that over time, but I think travel does it in a really compressed way with lots of really different scenarios that you just don't get in everyday life. Except perhaps over many years. And so it kind of compresses all that learning and just gives you so many different scenarios where you can self-develop, I suppose.
I think Sophia explains that just so articulately about the development of confidence as we travel, and her hitchhiking example is a really good one. I have never hitchhiked, I'm not sure I ever will, but I really thought that was a really good illustration. I also really stand by the idea that travel kind of builds confidence on steroids. Like, yes, over time, as you age in life, you probably build confidence in general. I think that's, fairly common, but travel really, really gives that a massive boost. Actually, I'm just going to read you a sentence from one of the academic journal articles that I read last year researching for my book. It's an article about crossing cultures, student travel and personal development. So focused on kind of study abroad and students travelling, but I think it's applicable broadly. And they determined this: much of the personal benefit of travel comes not from what students learn about the places or cultures they visit, but from the need to continuously make decisions and deal with the demands of daily life in new and unfamiliar settings. It's suggested that these experiences foster personal development in several ways. And they go on to mention that, one of those key ways is in building confidence. And I think it is that having to do lots and lots of new things, make new decisions, come to terms with so many things being different all at once, that makes the confidence on steroids thing happen. Anyway, my next guest is also, of course, talking about travel building confidence, and it is Nathan Thomas, who has some experiences on this topic to share as well.
Yeah, so I think the most important way that travel can teach confidence, certainly in my experience, is to show you that it creates a situation in which no matter what happens, you have to figure it out. Often you don't know people there. You're here and you need to be there, and your flight's going to be cancelled, or you're going to misplace your passport, or you're not going to be able to communicate to anyone and you're going to be completely lost. And you just have to figure it out and keep going. I mean, I remember I was in India with my fiance about 2 years ago, and it was our first time traveling there. And I kind of had the attitude that, I lived in China, I'll be fine. I know Asia. No, it was not the
India
case.
is different, isn't it? I've never been to India, but I've understood it's different.
It was an order of magnitude more challenging than pretty much anywhere else I'd ever been. And the process of buying a train ticket just at the railway station of New Delhi was not only the signpost contradictory, not only is this train station the size of an Australian city, but often the people in uniforms with name tags who look very official and are telling you, sir, go this way. They're not really railway employees. They're just scammers who picked up so it was probably took about an hour and a half to go upstairs to the little attic where foreigners can buy tickets. And but there was just never any question of giving up. Like you have to,
because otherwise, you can't just go to sleep and live at that train station forever. So
exactly,
you have to
some
find
people
a
probably
way.
do, but yeah. And then after you do that, then you feel a real sense of pride. Like at home, buying a train ticket is not really an achievement, but there it is. And after that, you're like, hey, I figured it out. I tried 900 wrong ways of getting the train ticket, but eventually I got it.
Yeah, those things are real confidence boosters, aren't they? I love that. It sounds terrifying though, and have never,
in retrospect, at least.
Yes, I suppose. A lot of travel can be like that, isn't it? Those sort of days where a lot of things are going wrong, or a lot of things feel difficult, and at the time you don't really think about it as fun, but in retrospect, they actually are great memories, aren't they?
100%, and you relive them in your mind. You get that sort of secondary enjoyment. I mean, and often you're quite scared at the time because you're far away, no one's there to help you. But when you look back on it, it's really, assuming that everything goes right, which it will in the end. I remember quite a few years ago, it was when I was living in China, me and a few friends from the university we were studying at got permission to travel through Tibet. And we were fairly remote, like we'd gone to Lhasa and we were, a few hours out of it in the mountains. And a guy that we were traveling with, I think he was German, he started to experience a lot of like internal pain, and he was fine, but he thought he wasn't. And so he kind of panickingly made our driver take this crazy detour to find a hospital in the wilds of Tibet where it was just people, like yak herders in the traditional uniforms. And I mean, it has a happy ending because my friend was fine. He got some pills and he was better in a few hours. But that whole experience of seeing that side of something that you would never ordinarily see. At the time, it was very stressful because you're worried about your friend, you're worried what's going to happen. But after everything resolves, it's something that you look back on like, wow, that was quite something.
And I think 99.9% of the time, all of these things work out. It's very, very rare that something goes seriously wrong. I mean, I've talked to hundreds of people about things that go wrong on their trips, and they've always been back here, able to tell me about them. So, it very, very rarely goes badly wrong. It just might not necessarily be fun at the time, but you're right. That whole reliving it is a whole new lens to look at it, and a lot of enjoyment and confidence as well to think, hey, I got through that. So yeah. I often think that. Think of the things I've endured on my travels, and then I think if I've got a sort of an everyday problem, I think, but I could do this, so therefore this is not so bad. So.
Exactly, and then you remind yourself, you can almost think at the time as you're going through something horrible, that, in a couple of years I'm going to enjoy telling people this story. I mean, that doesn't stop it from being awful at the time, but it can bolster you a little bit.
I actually think this is one of the reasons that episodes that we make about things going wrong when we travel are so popular. Perhaps it's because we understand that stuff going wrong is actually really good for us, as long as, nothing too terrible happens, but we learn so much about it and, of course, have a good story to tell. So, and confidence is one of those things that we learn from things going wrong or being a bit tricky or difficult. Now, my next guest is Sarah Meyer, and she has a really interesting story to tell about travel giving her confidence. And what I really liked is that she kind of had the idea before she even went traveling that this would happen. In fact, it was something she, was kind of hoping for.
Before I started traveling, I sort of did long-term traveling, and I went solo. And before I started that, I was very quiet, very shy. I'm still a bit like that, but I'm a lot more confident in myself than I was before I went. And that was one of the things I hoped would happen when I went traveling solo. So when I first started, the first place I went was Koh Phangan in Thailand. That was where I first flew into by myself. And I had booked this hostel for the first week. And it was this really, really lovely hostel on the beach. It had a pool and dorms and private rooms. I booked a dorm. And I got there. I was really nervous, but I checked in. They took me to my dorm. I'd booked a 4-bed dorm. And I walked in and I thought, okay, this is it. This is where I'm going to meet the first people of my travel adventures. So I walked in, I said hi, I introduced myself, and I got nothing back. There were 3 ladies in there. They just sort of half looked up from their phones or their books or whatever they were doing, and then looked back down. And I was devastated because I think I'd put so much on that first moment, that first meeting of other travelers. And suddenly I was thinking, oh my gosh, what have I done? Why am I here? I want to go home. So I sort of, set up my bed and sat up there for a while and was trying not to cry. I was so disappointed with that first meeting. And I called my dad and I had a long chat with him and I was like, have I done the right thing? Should I come home? And he said, look, it's going to be fine. It's your first day. Stick it out, stay there tonight, call me again tomorrow, see how it's going. He said, I'm sure it'll all work out and you'll love it, but if not, then of course you can always come home. So, I felt a bit better and I went, there was like a restaurant area at this hostel. So I went and I ordered myself some pasta and had my dinner. Sitting on my own in this communal area because I was too shy to go up to anyone else. It would really knocked me. I was too nervous. I didn't want to go up and talk to anyone. So I sat there with my pasta and just sort of looking around at what other people were doing. And then this lady came in. She was wearing a swimming costume. She was dripping wet. And she walked in sort of leaving wet footprints all around the restaurant. She was going up to people's tables and saying, do you have a ball that we're playing games in the pool. Do you have a ball that we could use to play games within the pool? And she was going around all these people and they're from saying, no, sorry, I don't have one. She came up to me and I said, no, I'm really sorry. I don't have one either. And then she walked away. And as she walked away, she then stopped, turned around and came back to me and said, are you on your own? Oh. And I said, yes. And she said, when you finished your dinner, do you want to come and join us in the pool with playing some games and having some drinks and things? And I was like, yes, yes, please. So yeah, I finished my food, went and got changed into my swimming stuff and went out to the pool. I hadn't even ventured that far yet. And this girl saw me and she waved to me and said, hi, come on over, come and join us. And there was a group of them all playing there in the pool. So I went over and I introduced myself and we all just started chatting and playing games and having a few drinks. And then a bit later on, they said, did you know it's the full moon party tonight? We're going. Do you want to come with us?
That's an initiation.
Yeah. So I knew that there was a party because this was the end of December. So I knew that there was going to be a New Year's party, but I'd got there, I think it was the 28th or something, which happened to be the full moon as well. So there was a party that night. So I went with them to the full moon party and that was a an experience. A long night full of lots of drinking and partying, and I mean thousands of people on this beach, and it was just amazing. And then the next day I spoke with my dad again, and he said, "Oh, have you managed to meet anyone? Have you managed to make any friends?" And I said, "Well, yeah, actually, I met some people, and I've actually, spent most of the night out partying on a beach with them, and had a really good time." And he said, "I knew you would. I knew you would."
Yeah.
And then from that moment on, I never felt like that again. That moment when I first got there, and people hadn't spoken to me, and I felt a bit rejected, and didn't know if I was doing the right thing. But from then on, I was traveling around Southeast Asia for about 6 months, and I never found that again. And that night gave me the confidence to go and introduce myself to people that I didn't know, because I realized that we were all in the same situation. Even if you're traveling with someone, everyone wants to meet people while they're traveling.
Exactly.
And I don't know what happened that first day when I got there, why those ladies in that dorm weren't interested. Maybe they'd had a big night the night before or something. I don't know.
Yes, exactly. But, yeah. But it was very unlucky for you.
Yeah, just happened to be my first encounter.
Yeah.
But after that, I just I didn't have those nerves. I could walk up to people and introduce myself, because I knew that they would be happy to include me into whatever they were doing, and I was never really alone. Even though I was traveling solo, I was never really alone after that, because it was always easy for me to meet people. And that's comparing that to the person I was before I went traveling, it was like I was a different person. Well, not really a different person, still me, but I was more sort of amplified, more confident.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so you said early on, you said that you'd hoped that would happen by traveling. So you obviously had this idea that you wanted to become more confident. And what gave you the idea that travel would help that?
Well, I just sort of figured that if I was by myself and I had to navigate my own way around all these different countries alone, then I just couldn't continue to be that shy girl who never spoke to anyone that she didn't know. I knew it would have to push me out of my comfort zone. And I really hoped that would then leave a lasting impression on me. And really, that is exactly how it went. I had no idea it would happen in the way it did, or what kind of difference it would make to me as a person, but it really worked.
Yeah, I mean, I had exactly the same experience, so I completely understand. So now back in everyday life, are you also more confident? It's not just when you're traveling?
Yeah, so I'm still quite a quiet person. People always say I'm quiet, but I have more confidence in myself. So I know, I'm not afraid to talk to people. I'm not afraid to assert myself or give my opinions on things anymore. Whereas before I was just, I was very introverted, and wouldn't really have done that.
So there we go. Some more amazing ways in which travel has given, in this case, Sarah, new confidence that's lasted and been good for all of her life, not just those traveling moments. I think travel is pretty amazing, isn't it? So I hope to hear some stories from my listeners about how travel has given you confidence. You can share your stories in either of our groups. Come to our Facebook group for Thoughtful Travellers. Just search for Thoughtful Travellers in Facebook, or even to our LinkedIn group. You can find that at notaballerina.com/LinkedIn. You'll get redirected to it. And of course, a big thank you to my guests today. We started off chatting with Sophia, and you can find more stories from Sophia at her website, sophia-b.co. I then chatted with Nathan of the Intrepid Times at intrepidtimes.com. Nathan has a new book out called Travel Your Way, Rediscover the World on Your Own Terms. I have a copy in my on my desk at the moment. I am about to dive into it because it really sounds like my kind of thing, in fact. And lastly, I chatted with Sarah, and you can find Sarah's writing at lastminutewonders.com. All of these links, if you missed them, are in the show notes. And for this episode, the show notes are at notaballerina.com/272. As always, thank you so much for listening. This has been another episode of the Thoughtful Travel Podcast. Show notes and other information are at notaballerina.com/podcast. Join me again soon for another chat about why we travel. Bye for now.